Hi everyone, welcome to this special subscribers town hall. Today, actually, we have a nice selection of people to answer some questions for you. We have Todd Pappy on the far right here, and my brother Chris Roberts, Tony Zurovic, and myself, and I'll be asking the questions because we're going to depth into the design, which is what these guys will be answering. So thanks you all for joining us, and I'll kick off with the first question. First question is, will individual planets have unique terrain, and how will they contribute to gameplay? So, Chris, you want to kick that one off?
That's actually one of the big, focuses. I think we've shown little bits of it when we did the CitizenCon presentation. We showed some ecosystems in what we called the Homestead demo, but it had, rocky, sort of mountainous areas, open sort of desert plains. We're planning to have a lot more sort of ecosystems and variety than we showed in Homestead. And the concept is that they would have their different challenges in terms of longer term weather, even wildlife or resources that would be there. So it's pretty exciting, and we're sort of building the tool set to allow the artists and the designers to have fun. And you watch Star Wars and you go, okay, yeah, there's Hoth, it's the sort of ice snow planet, and Endor's the forest moon or whatever. And we're definitely going to have different planets, moons even, that would have those sort of different fields, and in some ways maybe have more of a sort of variety of ecosystems, because obviously Star Wars tends to be very like, here's the snow planet, here's the forest planet, and I think that'd be cool. And I think longer term we're hoping to make it so that there will be gameplay and challenges related to the actual ecosystems themselves, and we could even see a point where you could crash land on a planet and you've got to get a distress beacon out and you've got to survive for a little bit of time before someone comes to rescue you, and so you've got to maybe hunt some wildlife, or find some water to drink, or find some special type of mineral that you needed to do to repair your ship or something like that.
Yeah, that's the important thing, which is that the environmental variability is not just cosmetic. It directly benefits the types of gameplay that we'll be able to have the players engage in. Everything from reduced visibility from snowstorms, sleet, fog, etc., impaired navigational capability from sources of radiation. All of these different types of mechanics come together and allow us to basically present new and different challenges. We can force the player out of their ship to actually walk or drive across the surface of the planet, because there's something that's throwing off too much interference, so that their ship in close proximity to the planet can't actually navigate how it normally would, or and a variety of things like that. And so all of this variation on the planet is not only going to present you with a lot of just visually different looking scenarios and stuff, but it's going to greatly increase the types of gameplay that we can put out there.
From a player standpoint, I think of this as natural gating, or versus like traditional MMOs or something like that, where, oh, you're not level 18, you can't go there. Like, this is our natural way to gate players of, oh, you don't have the right equipment to go into the extreme cold or extreme heat or radiation or something like that. So it's a way for us to take tools away from the players that they might be used to, whether that be the radars or affects the way that their sensors work in their ships, or even like the flight.
And I would say that's kind of like one of the reasons why we're doing all this systemic approach, right? Mm-hmm. So, in terms of you as a character or a human being in the role that you're playing, like you need to breathe oxygen, and so if there isn't a compatible atmosphere, you would need to have an environmental suit. Yeah. Or perhaps you're in a place that has too much radiation, you need to have some shield from that, or there's really bad windstorms, sandstorms, so during that you would have to find shelter. So we're trying to make it systemic, so that when we build the environments, it just works, as opposed to we program specific actions based on you being in this area but not with the right equipment. Like, the equipment allows you to survive the environments, essentially. And so you should, if you're going to explore, you should probably
have the explorer suit.
Have the explorer suit, have the land vehicle, all the things that can let you get down close, because like Tony said, there may be cases, which was sort of what we were kind of showing or hinting in the Homestead demo, was that the idea is there'll be areas you will not be able to fly your spaceship to, so you may have to get out on foot or get out and use a ground vehicle, or sometimes you'd have to land and take shelter. So like there's all these great sci-fi movies where you sort of see the approach, like Aliens, and they're going down the Hadley's Hope, and you sort of they go through the buffet of the atmosphere, and so we're all going to try to get all those aspects in there and really give detail to the different locations. So even though we may not have a billion procedurally generated moons or planets, we'll have a very large amount of actual planets and moons that have a really well constructed set of environments and ecosystems that should be challenging and interesting to explore.
That's the part that is most interesting to me, which is unlike, even more so than in space, we'll have the capability at a local scale to be able to change the environment such that scanning is more difficult or force you out of your ship, or finding an area. I mean, planets are enormously large things, and so since we're not going to basically just have the magical button that you can push and all of a sudden things are revealed to you, it's like if you're talking about things hidden in plain sight, just the sheer size of these things, and then once you start to add in forests and mountain ranges and snowstorms and fog and rain.
You think how long it's taken us to explore Earth, and there's probably some areas that haven't
still
been
finding pockets of oil and everything else. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So there's 7 billion of us here. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So moving on, a question which is kind of leading the same area is we as backers are obviously all excited for planetary landings in 3.0. But how are you planning on handling on-foot and in-flight exploration of a planet like ArcCorp that's completely covered in factories? And I guess what they're kind of asking is what is the gating for being able to go to a large civilian population, potentially just sort of walking around the planet?
So we've talked about this in the past. We've talked about this in the past, and basically the idea is that you're going to have, when you approach any of these major landing zones, an air traffic control system, and you're going to be slotted in and given permission to land. And at that point, they'll plot a course forward for you, and you need to stick fairly close to the path that they give you, or else you'll be autopiloted in. At the same time, on some of these planets.
But to be clear, just to also say so when we said it's not like we're going to take over control of you unless you deviate from but it's like landing, say, here in Los Angeles or landing in London. There'll be a flight path that you're given that you need to stick to. If you deviate from it, then your autopilot of your ship will be sort of taken over and they'll land it. But for instance, so there certainly would be a level in ArcCorp that you're above, like you can fly over Los Angeles at 30,000 feet, and that's okay. It's just coming down close.
This of course only applies to you coming in close proximity.
And it only applies to the sort of the big landing zones of cities that players
Well, it comes down to the problem we're trying to solve is we don't want people setting their ships down in the courtyard of Area 18. We don't want people doing combat strafes through the city, that type of thing.
You don't want someone to see what's going to happen when he crashes an Idris into the main plaza of
exactly.
ArcCorp.
And so the same concept applies on those planets like Hurston, to where you actually land on 95% of the planet. And if you actually happen to go close to the city, Lorville, then basically you'll just have certain gated entrances to the city to where you're forced to basically go through those, just
so
as you would.
Ground and air. So you basically you could land and maybe walk to a gate and then go in, or you could actually just land.
That's exactly it. And on the cities that actually have customs, you'd go through a ground-based customs just as you would coming through the airport.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Next question. Basically, just I guess it's more of a technical issue and how we're going to handle it, but. And let's, I guess I'll chuck this one out to Chris, just to throw it out to there. But how will the PU work during logouts, ISP disconnects on a multi-crew and player interaction basis?
Well, we actually had we were out in Austin a week or so ago, and this was actually one of the things we were talking about. But the concept that we're going with is that if you disconnect, for instance, your ship and character will persist for a little bit of time to allow you enough time to relog on and reconnect. Also, if you're on a multi-crew ship and there's other actual players on the ship, even if you log out or disconnect, the ship will still persist with the other players on it for as long as there are actual active, real live players on it. And then if everybody's gone, like everyone's disconnected or everyone's logged out, we will, at that particular time, sort of persist the ship for a little bit, and then if no one's around, we'll basically save the position off, and then when you log back in, it should bring you back with the ship in that position. There may be other stuff around. We would obviously have to have some logic that would make sure you don't get spawned where there is another ship right now. But essentially, we would sort of save your position or state and let the ship come back and get respawned in that particular position. And that's sort of the idea. Also, if you're like flying, you've got a bed, and you like find some area that there's no one really around, and then you can sort of save your game. That's the whole idea of having sort of beds aboard your multi-crew ships, is that you can sort of make it as a save game.
And that's the whole reason why it's because of the fact that your ship hangs around for some period of time after you're gone, that you don't want to be doing this, right when you're right in the middle of combat. So that basically we can, have a little safe zone. Your ship goes out, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
And we also spoke about it being actually on the planets. So it's the same system, no matter what, whether you're on the planets or in space.
So actually, I want to tie to that, 'cause there's another question here, which I'll jump forward to, because I think it's relevant to what we're talking about. And it's like, how will the game handle multi-day or multi-week guild run campaigns in the PU? Which obviously we just talked about how we'll handle that instance, but also I'd have thought in terms of, something which stretches over a long time and people are not going to be disconnected, but they're going to be actually logged out, then how are we going to handle that?
Well, I mean, I think that would be kind of the same sort of thing that we discussed. So like if there's a bunch of you on a ship or something and you're flying together, then you could take shifts like you would in real life. Some people could be flying while other people have logged out, and the ship would still carry on its mission. If everyone sort of says, okay, we're going to play from, 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. and then they all log out at 9 p.m., then we'll probably save off the state of the ship. After there's a little bit of time, and then bam, if you're safe, it's okay, I'll get saved, and then we'll just respawn when you log back on. If something happens when you've disconnected or you've logged out, by the way, we didn't mention that, and the ship does get destroyed, then you would essentially, it would respawn you at the closest sort of respawn point that we sort of, is the kind of death of a spaceman mechanic, where you come back, you wake up in the med bay, and your body's been recovered from space, and then you'd probably have to have an insurance claim. So your key is, if you're going to log out, you should make sure that you're sort of logging out when you're not near any hostiles or enemies, because there will be a period, if there are hostiles or enemies, your ship will still persist, and it will persist there until there are hostiles or enemies are either gone or your ship is, being destroyed.
Well, we're trying to split that fine line between giving you the convenience to actually be 20 minutes, out from some major city in an asteroid field doing something, and then you log off and you can continue, back the next day. But at the same time, we need to prevent players from exploiting this functionality such that they're in the middle of, combat and basically just logging out and their ship goes immediately.
No, we don't. I mean, there's got to be some. There has to be persistence. There has to be consequence. Or else everything you earn will mean nothing, right? So there needs to be some I need to get to an area where I'm safe and then I can log out. Yeah. That's what we want. We don't want you going. We don't want people pulling the internet cord in the middle of a battle they know they're losing just to essentially escape losing their ship, because that wouldn't be cool at all. So when you get into a situation, whether it's AI or another player you're fighting with, you're at risk. You're at risk to lose your ship there, and and yes, it would suck if you got disconnected at that very moment in time on the internet by no fault of your own. But I mean, we can't really, we can't tell when someone rage disconnects and someone actually, gets their internet service drops on them. So we'll just persist the ship, and hopefully they can reconnect back in and get back into it. And if you're flying a bigger ship, like a multi-crew ship, those are going to be tougher, probably more tougher than we even have right now.
They would, but your NPC crew on those larger ships, you're probably going to have a healthy contingent of other players helping you or other NPCs, and those people would continue to function.
Would still be active.
Yes.
So to be clear, if you disconnected and you had an NPC crew, that ship would still exist, the NPC crew doing stuff. And then if you reconnected, you were back in there on the ship, and we'll keep it in that state for a while to allow you to reconnect. So the key is really just to make sure that if you're traveling and you want to save, you just got to make sure you're saving in an area where it's fairly safe. You're not going to be under threat or attack.
So I know that there's absolutely going to be questions that come from this conversation, because I know we've talked about it. So I just want to bring it up, is the question of, you've got your crew of hopefully friends, and you disconnect. and now your friends are running your ship, what's to stop them from, or, I mean, basically, and there probably isn't anything, but the question I think talked about is what happens then? What happens if they decide to take your ship somewhere else without your permission?
What could it be? I mean, at that point, I lend you my car. And
no, I agree. But the point is, I just think
you decide to take it on a rally and
right. So basically,
I see this as being more like this is the exact same problem that we're going to encounter over and over and over again that we've talked about, which is, well, if somebody boards your ship, can they basically just sit in the pilot's seat and go? And that's the way it is right now. But if eventually we're going to have much more of a security system concept, and so irregardless of the fact that I allow other players onto my ship, that doesn't necessarily mean that I, as captain, have basically given them the keys to the thing.
So if I disappear, you may not give them the permission to use the helm. They may have the permission to walk all around or use turrets or whatever, but
I
can
see
may not have the keys to the ignition.
Yeah, I can see the captain, the owner of the ship, basically designating who can do what. In other words, if I'm disconnected, then my navigator, whether it's an NPC or a player, can basically assume control of piloting the craft. But I, in advance, basically said how I want the ship to, how I want the crew of the ship 100%. To be able to respond in this particular scenario.
But I think there's always going to be the issue where, at the end of the day, you're going to basically have to trust the people you put in your ship because you're going to sign.
But even then, I mean, we've talked about reputation hits and bounties and all sorts of other things that would hopefully help mitigate that issue.
Yeah, and that's a huge part when you're hiring other players and NPCs. You're not going to be doing this blindly. We will be tracking a number of different statistics, attributes that will allow you to get some sense of how they've been.
I just see it as part of the gameplay, and you just need to make sure that before you go and do that with your ship, or just say, you guys can fly around for a week while I'm on holiday, that you have to understand that stuff can happen.
Basically, your ship or various equipment, it's your possessions, and your possessions can be destroyed or stolen by other players. There'll be certain things in place to help prevent that, and there'll be certain things to enforce that not happening in law-abiding areas, but you're always going to have some risk of things being destroyed or stolen by other players, and there will be a black market. So for instance, like a ship's a good example of, you kind of need a transfer title to sell it pretty much anywhere. But if I steal, say, your Constellation, so I probably couldn't go to ArcCorp and sell it because I don't have the papers for it, even if I just took it over, I found it sitting there in an asteroid field, no one was in it. But there's probably some places I could go that I could talk to a kind of chop shop shady person who'll pay me less than you would normally pay for a legitimate secondhand Connie, and then I could get some money for that way. So we'll have those sort of systems in, and if you're flying a ship that has been denoted with, it's a stolen ship and you're in a law enforcement area and the law enforcement scans you, or any bounty hunter running around can see that you tag you're in a stolen ship, then they would have the ability or the authorization to engage in, if they're a player, PvP against you, to sort of bring you to justice. So we'll sort of have some of those balances in there. But you should think that your possessions in general can be destroyed and can be stolen. That's one of the reasons why you have insurance. But we want to make it so it encourages you to hold on to your stuff. It encourages you to repair them and maintain them. We don't want you to fly out there, get a scratch on your Constellation and go, I don't like it now. I'm going to smash it into an asteroid field and blow it up, and then I'll respawn and get another Constellation instantly, which is what happens right now in the baby PU in the Crusader. So as we move towards a much more persistent, proper game, which 3.0 is really going to be that, we're going to try to disincentivize you and incentivize you to keep your ship running, keep it maintained, keep it repaired, and try to keep it out of situations where it can be damaged or stolen.
Okay.
Ideally build a relationship with it, but then, I would love to see the awkward conversations that would come out of that. Like your brother steals your ship or takes your ship, and then you're having those conversations of, what did you do with my stuff, kind of thing.
Yeah. That never happens. Anyway, next question is, how will the PU handle instancing of missions and the NPC enemies that spawn around them? In the mini PU now, we have a direct correlation between the number of players in the area and the number of NPC pirates that spawn. I realize this is just a temporary solution, but will the final PU use a similar process to scale the difficulty of the missions based on the number and quality of the players accepting it? Tony?
What we have right now is actually far simpler than what we're going to have very shortly as soon as the mission system makes its debut. Right now it's just a simple linear relationship to basically scale the difficulty up, Whereas what we're going to be able to do is take into account not just your specific capabilities in terms of the number of people in your party, the ships, the capability of those ships, what your reputation is, what you're actually carrying, and all of these things will be able to be factored into this database of possible missions, which is also able to take into account what you should be seeing in that area, such that if you're a freighter and you're carrying loads and loads of valuable cargo through a dangerous area and you have no escorts, that's going to make you particularly attractive to pirates that are looking for to make a quick buck. And so what you've seen thus far, there's really no comparison. This is basically functionality that was just put in to give a little bit of ramp in difficulty to make it playable, but the real system is far more capable.
Cool. Okay, and then I'm going to throw one to you, Todd. Could you comment on any of the man-made or environmental risks that we can expect to see in the PU?
Well, as we talked about earlier, like with the power system and basically with the environments that we're building, where they have power, oxygen, or life supports, then gravity, as well as possible other leaks or radiation leaks. And so when you're running around in those environments, from a design standpoint, we want to be able to create different scenarios. So either you come into a derelict or you come into one that's fully powered and fully operational. So for us, it's more about just creating these situations that will allow players to investigate and try out and deal with the appropriate and find ways to solve those problems. So whether it's a radiation or oxygen leak or something like that, then you need to go get your suit on. You need to basically have enough oxygen to survive what you need to do in that area. Or if it's too close to a sun or something like that, then you're going to be dealing with a certain amount of heat. But those to me are spices that, our underlying mission system would be kind of like, let's say, the bland food, and then we use these.
Upset about his mission system, calling it bland.
Yeah, sorry. That we use these different spices to basically make the missions a lot more interesting and unique for the players to.
Yeah, in that regard, it's very similar to what we were talking about for the environments, to where it gives you this systematic ability to be able to present the player with all of this, different potential diversity and allow them to figure out, their own unique solution as to how they want to, chart a course through that.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd say is that we're kind of, people haven't really seen it yet, but multi-crew ships are going to be a large part of sort of in my opinion, the fun gameplay, you and a small group of friends, or even you and a bigger group, playing together. And you don't really see that right now, because right now you can either pilot, or perhaps you can man a turret, and the turrets still need work. They've sort of not really had much love, because we've been waiting for everything to shift to item 2.0, so we don't really want to fix the old turrets. We want it for the new turrets. But they're just a small part, because really for us, when you're flying, it's you're not just piloting, but there's things like the scanning, the radar, the communications, engineering, so adjusting the systems on the bigger ships. And we're also going to have the concept of this is we've talked about it, it's not in, but it's part of kind of the item 2.0, but the items or the different components of your ship will have age and sort of wear, maintenance level. And the idea is that if you're not really keeping them up, or they're getting old, and depending on the quality of the component, because we have different quality ratings for them, they can break down. Yep. So then you're going to have to fix them. If they break down, you're going to have to replace them. And we have sort of we have smaller items, so like a power plant may have different sort of fuel rods, or there may be fuses on power nodes, and these things can break down. Maybe you're powering up for quantum drive, and you're going for long distance, and I think we have some plans to make quantum drive not just be automatic, and things could short out, and you've got to run and fix it. Also in combat, as you're in combat, the concept should be that the multi-crew ships, which is why I was saying they'll last longer in the future in the PU, if you have a crew on and working together, basically fixing the leaks, replacing the fuse break, so constantly sort of almost running around inside repairing it, like you see in all these science fiction movies. Yeah. You can extend the life of your multi-crew ship in a combat, and which would be important because generally the multi-crew ships probably won't maneuver as fast as the single-seater fighters and everything else. But they're much more tanky because not only are they bigger, and not only will they have more armor and more power and more shields and all the rest of stuff, but they'll have an active crew able to run around and fix things as it's breaking. Whereas if you're on a single-seater ship, you can't really stop in the middle of a dogfight, get out EVA, and repair the shield generator that blew a fuse or whatever. So there'll definitely be stuff to be done in combat, but even on long distance travels, if you think about like you're going from one system to another system, maybe during the course of it you'll have to do some maintenance for your engine or repair fuses, and I think that's sort of gameplay that could, because we are going to have some transit times on the longer distances where you're not going to be in quantum drive for a few seconds, you're going to be in quantum drive for minutes or tens of minutes in the longest cases, and so there will be some aspect of maintaining your ship and keeping it going and making sure you've stocked up on items, and so I think there's a lot of real potential for gameplay that comes out of this whole idea of these like systemic components or items that all interact together that need to be taken care of, that need to be maintained to run right, and the people that know how to do it and balance it and juggle it will be the more successful ones out there.
And also with that system, I mean, when I was talking about environments, it's using the same system that he's talking about right now. So now it would be filtered even down to basically the planets or the planetary outposts that we've shown, as well as satellites, and everything in our universe will be using power plants or solar arrays or some sort of power generator, but it is basically using the same power system.
Yeah, it's the same system underneath it all for all of it. And so we're hoping that, that's probably a bit more than you would normally see in a game, but it's one system that goes across everything, whether it's down on the ground and the ships, like satellites you're mentioning, and then once you learn like the interaction and the use of it, it hopefully should be fairly intuitive and be a sort of simplified version of what you get in the real world. And then from that, there's a lot of possibility because you can not only have to maintain stuff, but you could actually actively disrupt stuff to, prevent someone, like say that's boarding a ship, or you as someone that's trying to take over a ship or take over a space station or take over an environment on the ground could also use these things intelligently, like cut someone's power off to,
you want to have those counterplays that people.
I would add to what you said that people haven't yet seen the true potential of multi-crew and what it's actually going to mean, insofar as the gameplay. And one of the areas where it's we're just going to take, I think, a dramatic leap forward is going to be when we actually start to incorporate the crew. Right now, you tend to basically take over a ship any size, and there's one player, or maybe he's got another person or two. But it's just you kill one or two or three guys, and now you own the ship, and that's going to be dramatically different when players have the ability to go out and, for example, since they want to guard against exactly that, they spend a little bit more money. They hire NPC, could be player characters, with a particularly high combat rating, and then basically anyone that wants to board that ship and try to take it over is first going to have to get through all of those crew members before they can actually even have a chance at basically seizing control and taking the ship. And then even after they do that, then they're going to face all of the impediments that we were talking about insofar as the law is basically going to be on them if they're in a secure zone and a variety of other things. And so all of a sudden you can start to see that act of trying to take some of these larger ships. It's not going to be something that plays out in a minute or two. It's going to be these long drawn out battles to where you've basically got probably one well-organized force of players, potentially with NPC backup, fighting against another another entrenched group of players whose ship has been probably disabled, but they're now able to fight. To basically try to repel these borders, and what you're going to get is a chunk. You're going to get a gameplay experience that's going to be unlike anything that we've been able to put forward thus far.
So on that side, I think I can move straight over to a question to go to the complete other side of the spectrum. Since we've gone for the violent side, let's go for a bit of the more sort of pacifist side and talk about a bit of farming. So basically, so one of the questions is, now with farming coming in the distant future, could it be possible, in the future, to retire our character and do some farming, like a mini game, a la Harvest Moon, and having a small house on Goss, a field, and a garden?
I would say it's not really the concept of being retired. All of these different occupations that you do, and some will be peaceful, farming. There's a variety of other ones that we're
So the
going to
answer is
support.
yes.
Yes, but you kind of have to qualify it in that the
They
way
still
that
have
you
to
would
work.
go about if you want to not
still have to
deal with any of
defend
the
the
combat
homestead.
is you go find some distant locale to where there's very little that's going to draw over any of these more nefarious elements, and basically then you do your mini game just like you could do over in a busier area of the system, but because the potential payout is less, or because the density of other farmers or transit pathways or whatever is less, you'll just attract less attention. The key point there though is that you're not off isolated. You're still in the same universe. It's just that that a solar system is an enormously large place, and so it'll be very easy for those players that really want to do these self-contained, isolated activities to basically go find a little area and do their own thing. But there's always the possibility that someone's going to find them, and if they're actually
you log out, you come back, and your homestead's razed by the bad guys, and you've got to come back.
Yeah, but it's the same thing with mining.
Track them down for vengeance.
It's the same thing with mining. You can just picture that there will certainly be well-known fields of very valuable, elements that loads of players are being drawn to and extracted, and that draws all the guys that are looking to make a quick buck, and you're going to see a lot of freighter traffic. But there will also be little pockets of value here and there, potentially, that you found yourself, and so it's possible, but very unlikely that someone else would find that within the same, small periods of time that you're actually out there exploiting those natural resources. So I think just from the sheer size of space, a lot of the players that want isolation, they're going to have that, but there's always that danger. They never really know for sure because they are they're going to be in a universe with thousands of other players.
Okay, so just a couple of questions left. So I think this one's probably a pretty quick answer. So Chris, one of the questions is, will there be multiple currencies, perhaps used by different races?
Starting out, it's just going to be the UEC. Yeah. There most likely will be a currency for the Zhan, most likely be a currency for the Banu, but that's a longer term aspect, and you probably wouldn't trade in it, so you would basically everything would be translated to UEC, and we would just trade from there, and then maybe down the road, if we sort of got more into future expansions, which by the way we have a huge amount of work already, but we've talked long term about being able to play another race like the Zhan and the Banu. In that case, it would probably make sense that you would have currency for those particular races. Yep. But while you're playing human, basically you will trade in UEC, and then there'd be just basically a currency, just like now if I'm in dollars and I'm in Europe. I can pay off my card in dollars, even though they're translating it from the exchange rate from euros.
And we likely wouldn't have an identical translation mechanism everywhere, which basically means that for the more economically oriented players, it presents some interesting opportunities in terms of arbitrage and things like that. It becomes a commodity like anything else, to where the value is one thing here and it's slightly different there, and therefore if you can basically accept a contract and transfer that value via whatever mechanics we come up with, then you could make some money.
Just to be clear, it's just a stretch goal. This one. It's not going to be anytime soon. And then the last question I'll put to you, Todd, is, I'm sure other people will interject, is will people/ships get the capability to activate a distress beacon of sorts that broadcasts their location to nearby ships? This could become a risky thing due to it attracting pirates and such, of course. As the view stands, there are missions with ships that have distress beacons, yet players have none as of yet.
The quick answer is yes.
Okay.
So longer or more in-depth answer would be yes, and there's different caveats to it. So there'd be the distress call, so that you can actually pull in more like the authorities or the security forces that might be around you. Then there's actual, I want to come out and save me. My ship has been blown up. Then there's possible, hey, I want to use this to hire people. So like the mercs or anything, I'm going to fly through this area. So I'm going to turn on this service beacon sooner than later, and then find out, if I want.
Because the idea, like a service beacon, right, is basically you're broadcasting
I'm looking for something.
I'm looking for you to someone to do this for me.
Yes.
Which the simple case that we're talking about here is I'm looking for someone to come save my ass because I'm stuck
Yeah,
in
well,
space.
it's
Correct.
It's
Or
a company,
refuel, or
I'm looking for someone to refuel. I'm looking for someone to come defend me. I'm looking for someone to fly on my wing. It's all part of that same system that we've called the service beacon.
Yeah, it's a dynamic job board that allows players and or NPCs to sync up with one another, assuming the terms meet. When I basically have a guy come to refuel me or come to escort me, it's like, well, I'm going to have various filter criteria. What's his reputation? How
much am I going to pay?
How good is he? What am I willing to pay? How quickly can he be here? All of these things are going to be, elements that you can put, within your basic job description, and then only people that have compatible interests could potentially see that. Further, you'll be able to isolate the number of people, the types of people that can actually respond to these things, so that you can only engage in this type of, contractual, transaction between friends or players in your organization, or just anybody that's got compatible interests. And then it's up to players to basically figure out, how far out they want to extend their trust.
Cool. Okay. Well, I think that's it for the questions. So thanks a lot for sitting with me and answering all the questions. And I'd like to thank
everyone out there.
Yeah, absolutely, everyone out there, and especially the subscribers for supporting this whole endeavour. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in the Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.